Hi, my name is Tom McLoughlin. I'm from a company called FXHome. We're a UK technology company. We specialize in imaging technologies for filmmakers, motion graphic artists, photographers, and we've been working with Sony quite extensively for the last few years with our product HitFilm. Now, as part of NAB in 2014, we're really excited to be announcing a range of HitFilm plugins, which are going to be available later this month, and they're going to be cross-platform, but I'm going to show you how they work today in Sony Vegas, but also talk about a few other ways that Sony Vegas users can utilize the power of HitFilm to add some high-end visual effects and compositing capability to their Vegas setups. So, one of the exciting things about the launch of Vegas 13 is everyone who gets Vegas 13 is going to get 7 of our pack of 130 FXHome HitFilm plugins included in the purchase. So and there are going to be some a wide range of different plugins. We've got some light flares, we've got some kind of bleach bypass and vibrance looks, we've got things like TV damage effects, and then also anyone who chooses to come to our website and register as a Sony Vegas user gets 7 more additional plugins, so a total of 14 free plugins for all Sony Vegas 13 users. And then we also are going to be selling a great value pack that's going to be $499 for a full pack of 130 effects. Now, all of these effects have been developed for our product HitFilm, available currently as HitFilm 2 Ultimate. And since the launch of Vegas 12 and HitFilm 2 Ultimate, there's been a really, really powerful interoperability feature available for users with both of the products on their systems. So they're going to be basically 3 ways that Sony Vegas users can access HitFilm technology. It's going to be through the bundled plugins that come with Vegas 13. They can choose to purchase the full pack of 130 plugins, or if they own HitFilm 2 Ultimate, which is available as part of a bundle from Sony as well, then they'll have access to the full 3D compositing, kind of 3D model imports and all kinds of really, really powerful high-end features. So it really gives Vegas users something that they don't get just from the compositing features within the program, which, whilst they're strong, they're very different to the kind of the full layer-based keyframe style compositing that HitFilm offers. So I've got quite a few examples of different things, so I'm going to just run through and see how many I can get through in kind of 20, 25 minutes. Afterwards, me and some of my colleagues from FXHome are here as well, sitting in the audience. We're going to be at the Sony Creative Software booth, so if anyone's got more detailed questions about features or anything we've talked about, please do come and grab us, and we'd be happy to chat to you about things. But I'll jump right in and show you a few things. So here I am in Sony Vegas, and I've got a nice shot of a boxer here.
You've got an hour. You don't have to rush.
Oh, really? OK. Cool. I've just been told I've got an hour, so we'll get through all of my examples. Yes. Yeah. This is just a piece of stock footage. It's already got quite nice, it's been shot in HD, it's got some nice colors in there, it's quite rich, and it's a DNX HD file, so there's lots of decent color information in there. But one of the really nice features of the HitFilm pack that covers all kinds of different post-production uses. The grading is particularly strong. So I'm going to just show you a few different grade examples. I've set up a few layers here with some effects to show you some different looks that can be achieved. So I'll just click that one on. And this is using the HitFilm Vibrance effect. So Vibrance, what it does is localize sharpening and saturation, and you can play with it. All of our effects are fully customizable. They're not presets, they're not just drag and drop things. You're able to go in and control them to a high level. And Vibrance can create some really quite differing looks depending on how you adjust the sliders. Everything from a kind of punchy Hollywood look through to a very HDR look. I'm just going to move a few things around here. So by changing the number of iterations, you can reduce the punchiness very quickly, but by changing the intensity as well, you start to affect the colors in very different ways. So everything from a kind of a very high contrast, punchy look through to something that's a bit more stylized can be achieved very, very quickly with this kind of effect. And as you see, all of the HitFilm effects are working within Sony, within the OFX control panel. They vary in complexity. This is actually quite a simple one. You've really only got 3 sliders, but within that, you've got a high degree of control. So by manipulating these three things, you can achieve very, very different looks very, very quickly. So I'm going to turn that layer off and go on to the next one. Ooh. And here you see this is using the Bleach Bypass effect, which is one of the ones that's bundled with all copies of Vegas 13. But what we've also done here is lined up a few different effects to show you how you can create a chain of effects to create different looks again. So if I turn off the Bleach Bypass and the duotone, so we're starting off here. Actually, we've got our vibrance still on, so I'm going to flick that off. So starting from there, to create a really nice, rich black and white effect, we've in fact used 3 of the HitFilm effects. We start off by using the custom grey, which enables us to create a nice flat black and white color palette. We're using the duotone to increase that a little bit more. And then finally, with the Bleach Bypass, we're making it very punchy. Now again, each of these effects is customizable. You can use the controls to achieve different things as you go along, and by altering things at the beginning of the chain, you're affecting things right through to the end. Or you might decide that actually you don't want to use something like the duotone, which is flattening it. You want to keep some of the grain and the detail in the shot that this is bringing out. So what we are trying to illustrate here is how, again, it's not presets, it's not drag and drop, it's about the way you combine these tools to create different things as you go. They're very, very versatile toolkits. So a very different look again would be something like this two-strip kind of processing look, which is actually based on, I'm going to turn the vibrance off. We often use something like vibrance as a base layer, because if you pump up the contrast and things and then put effects on top, you can get stronger looks. But I'm going to turn that off so you can get a better idea of what we're doing. So going back to what I mentioned about the quality of the original shot, the color data that's in there, you can see by using an effect like two-strip, which again is the one that's included in all copies of Vegas 13, we've been able to change all the blues through over to greens, and it's based on the original Technicolor processes from the 1940s, the way it treats color things to get very, very different effects as you go along. Again, as I mentioned, we use vibrance to give it a bit more kind of punchy film look, but you may decide that that's not really what you want to do. Obviously, it's entirely up to the user how they combine these effects to create different things right through. This is a slightly strange one, but I want to show you some of the glows. So again, this is using a sequence of different effects. So I'm going to turn some off so we can see what we're doing as we go along, going back down the chain. Let's get a nice shot where you can see his face a little bit. So here we're using 3-strip color, which again is a Technicolor-based effect from the 1950s and 60s as opposed to the 1940s. We're using the HitFilm glows, which is blowing out what's happening in the windows, and we're also using anamorphic lens flares. Anamorphic lens flares is a really, really great effect, and again is one that's it's not included in the initial 7 in Sony Vegas. You have to come and register at our website, but it is free for Sony Vegas users. If they register, they get hold of that one. I'm going to show you that one in a little bit more detail later on. Now this is the kind of look that perhaps you might want to use if you were doing something like a pop promo. But all of our effects are analyzing the images that they're based on. So the anamorphic lens flares here are looking at the brighter areas of the frame. As I mentioned before, they're completely customizable, so you can create very different looks. See, I'm increasing the number of streaks here, and it's blowing out very quickly. You may not want to go as far as that. And this is also quite blurred. We can take it down, you get much stronger or softer glow effects. Obviously the intensity is going to affect the actual strength of the glow, and the threshold is looking at which areas of the frame it appears on. So by combining these in different ways, you can create very different looks and change the number of streaks, whether they're appearing horizontally or vertically around the frame, where they appear in the frame, whether they're pivoting. Let's see if I can just play this one back. We'll see how it goes. These are all GPU accelerated effects, so we're working directly off the graphics card here, rendering within Sony Vegas. Playback's not exactly real time, but it's not too bad. So you can see that as we play through, the glows are analyzing the brighter areas of the frame, that's where they're appearing. And that's why that shot was obviously a fairly simple pan up, but if there was a lot of camera movement, the flares would react to that camera movement. That's what I'll be illustrating a bit later in a slightly bigger example for that. So yeah, again, we're combining a sequence of effects to create quite a dynamic and strong look. And the final example I'm going to show you here is something that's a bit more stylized. Let's go up a little bit. And again, we're starting with vibrance. It's a really good base level for a lot of effects. I turn that off, you can see you lose a bit of the punchiness. But we're using Cinestyle, which is another one of our signature HitFilm effects. And that's to create a kind of a Hollywood or Michael Bay type look, if you want to think of it like that. And it's a very straightforward way to create a more filmic look. Perhaps there's something that's been shot on video and you want to make it look like film. You can do things like add in a letterbox. You can enable grain. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it on this particular screen, but you've got quite a lot of control about the amount of grain. That's procedurally generated grain. Vignettes. In a similar way to vibrance, actually, there's a lot of control of the saturation. Obviously, exposure is going to adjust how bright the image is. This is quite bright already, so I'm not going to change it. But Cinestyle's real strength is its S-curve color treatment, which is that filmic crushing the blacks and whites type effect. If I go from one end to the other, you can see what it's doing to the image there. And the color adjustment as well. It's based very much on how cold or how warm your image is, whether we're going towards the blues or whether we're going towards the kind of oranges, with the teal and orange type effect. So you're controlling the balance of where that image is. Obviously, you can see here it's reacting very quickly. I'm doing this live within a beta of Sony Vegas with beta of the HitFilm plugins. And everything is working nicely and stably. So those are just it's the tip of the iceberg, really, when it comes to the HitFilm grading plugins. If I just collapse this, you can see we have the side here. We've got various folders of all the HitFilm effects. And some of those were based on color correction. We have stylized looks going on in there as well, and color grading. So we've got more than 30 effects that are based on manipulating the colors within your image, and obviously combining those in different ways. That's a very, very broad range of looks that you can achieve very quickly directly within Sony Vegas. So I'm going to close that project down and open something else. Now, FXHome have always had a great kind of history and pedigree with green screen. One of our products is the market-leading solution for events photographers who use green screen. And our very early technologies, which are based on things like DV video for amateur filmmakers, included a lot of green screen keying. So things that we developed to work on very low-resolution images, now we're able to work on much higher resolution images. You can get really incredibly strong results. And we have a whole suite of keying and matte enhancement effects that are available within the HitFilm plugins package. So we've got various things going on here. So I'm going to, again, this is a final image. A little bit noisy. I think we've got some grain going on in there in Cinestyle. So let's turn this layer off. Oh, not going to do that because I'm losing my line. So if I go down here and open up, this is the basic HitFilm Chroma Key menu, and I'm going to show you where we were starting from. So this is a piece of stock footage. We deliberately selected this because it's not been perfectly shot. There are some problems with the green screen. I think it's been upscaled. This is a 1080p file. I personally think it probably started life at 720p. So this is the kind of a challenge when it comes to green screen keying. I mean, even if I just play it back now, so there's quite a lot of noise around the hair and his whiskers and all of that kind of stuff. Now, using the different views within Chroma Key, we can get a good idea of what the software is actually seeing. So that's a basic matte view. Status is actually slightly more interesting because anything that's a solid black means that it's a perfect key, it's disappearing. Anything that's white is staying. Anything that's grey, there's a degree of transparency in there. So using this view can actually be really helpful to try and refine the detail of an image. And then we have inbuilt spill suppression technology as well. So the D-spill map, not the mat, can also show us any area where the plugin is analyzing the footage and looking for green that's within the final image and then trying to remove that or replace it with a color from the background. So these different views are really powerful when it comes to refining a key. We also have one other thing I'm going to very quickly mention. I'm going to go back to my result view. We have a really, really powerful feature called adaptive color. And this is just kind of a tick on and off option. And what it means is that the key basically does a second pass. It keys it once, it then goes back and analyzes it. It's looking for any more green to remove. Now, adaptive color is great if you're trying to retain fine hair detail, perhaps in a new studio situation or something like that. But what it's not great for is an uneven green screen, because it will pick up all the differences in the greens in the background and will try and retain some of them. So for this particular image, I'm going to turn it off because it's not something that's going to help us. And we may be able to see that more actually if I go to the mat and turn it on. Yeah, it's just crunching in the detail of the back a little bit. We have lots of tools that allow you to refine your matte in different ways, kind of by clipping the background and the foreground. Actually, if I just go back, you can see by clipping the foreground here, I'm just making sure I retain some of the detail that would be around the muzzle. The background actually isn't too bad, so I don't really need to clip that too much. You don't want to push these things too far. The more you're affecting these, the more you're working on the image early in the process, and you run the risk of artifacts and noise and so on. And generally, the HitFilm Chroma Key gives you a pretty good result without too much tweaking. So the controls like bias here are really interesting. So essentially, it's almost white balancing the image that's within your matte. So I've selected this yellow here that helps because there's a lot of that in the lion's natural coloring. So let's go back to the result. I'm going to quickly make sure I'm mentioning all the right things. Yeah. Okay. So now this is obviously a very basic comp here. I've just put my lion in front of a tree in the savannah. So I need to do a little bit of color matching with the grade. So I've done that very simply with a crushed blacks and whites, putting a bit more kind of richness back into the lion. Now I'm just going to close this down again and open up a specific folder here. These are some of the matte enhancement tools available within the HitFilm plugin set and within the HitFilm program itself. All of these various effects can help you a lot with different problems that you may experience with green screen as you go along. I'm not going to go through them all in detail. If people would like to chat about it, have a bit of a demonstration, come over to the booth a little bit later or straight after the presentation and we can show you some examples. But like I was mentioning, keying is a very strong suite for FXHome, and you know, we're very proud of the results you can achieve with our key, again directly within Sony Vegas or within our own products. There's one other thing that we're using here. You can see in our timeline, we've in fact got the background in twice. It's above our lion as well as below it. This is because of the way Vegas approaches composite modes. So you can see on the layer that's the top layer of the tree, we have a custom composite mode, and we've added an effect into that as well, which is the HitFilm Light Wrap, which if I play with the radius, you can probably see on the lion's hide, it's bringing some more of the background color into the image. And again, it can make a really big difference in selling a comp to someone, because you're starting to bleed some of the background color around your matte. And of course, we stuck a grade on the end just to make it look good. Okay. Well, this is a slightly nerve-wracking one because I haven't had a chance to test it properly, but I'm going to try and show you some of the interoperability between HitFilm and Sony Vegas. So we're not quite there yet. Yes, yep. So, okay, so what we have here, as you spotted straight away, this media file isn't a video, it's a HitFilm project file. And I'm able to drop it into the Vegas timeline and sit it there and play it. And it's playing using HitFilm's render engine. It's kind of rendering in the background. Vegas is able to see the output. And by right-clicking on the media in the timeline, selecting Edit in HitFilm, what it's going to do is open up the HitFilm product. And here is my project. Now, what we've actually done here is a fairly simple little effect. We've done some video cleanup. I'm going to open up my control panel with my effects. We've used a clone stamp effect. And if I turn it off, you can see a spot appearing by the mouth around this area. And what we've done is, by using the 2D tracker that's built into HitFilm, we've tracked the position of that spot through the course of the video. We've created a layer that's a clone region. So essentially what we're doing is we're telling the clone stamp tool to look at this area here, and then replace the masked area, thus removing the spot. Now, if I wanted to make any changes to this, all I would have to do is save it and go back to Sony Vegas, and the project would update. So in fact, maybe what I should do is quickly do something so you can see how that would happen. So, because we've mentioned it before, I'm going to very quickly put Cinestyle on here. Turn off the letterbox. But I saved my project back in Sony Vegas, and it's updated that quickly. However, I don't really want to use Cinestyle for this example, so I'm going to go back and turn it off. Okay, so what I'm actually trying to show you here is different ways that you can do some skin retouching. So the first thing we've done is using Clone Stamp tool directly within HitFilm to remove a blemish. And then I'm going to use one of the effects that you can use within HitFilm, but I'm going to use it within Sony Vegas instead. I am going to go for, there are so many effects, it's going to take me a while to find it. Pro Skin Retouch, there we go. Okay, so those are the defaults of the plugin. It's gone a little bit too far. So I can go in and refine what I'm trying to achieve. So you may want to go for something very, very stylized and almost comic booky like this, but I think that's a little bit much for me. So I'm going to try and bring a little bit more of a natural feel back into this image. So by doing things like controlling the brightness, actually what I should show you as well, we're looking at a final result here, but essentially what it's doing is creating a matte of the skin and pumping in a glow, colors, brightness, saturation, and smoothing. So by looking, you can see this is what it's selected as the skin color. You can control that as well through your color picker. There is some relationship between colors in the background and the skin, so we have to be aware that we are going to be treating not just the skin in this particular instance. But because it's an out of focus, or kind of shallow depth of field, I should say rather, image, that's actually not going to be a problem in this particular case. So I think I want to make it a little bit more smooth. Maybe a little bit too far there. And maybe just play a little bit with the glow here. So you can see I've just brought a little bit of saturation back into her skin, smoothed out some of the freckles very quickly, directly within the Sony product. And that's playing back via HitFilm's render engine for the clone stamp, and then applying a GPU accelerated effect within Sony Vegas. And that's the kind of performance that we're able to achieve very quickly. Yeah, should have closed down HitFilm. So again, I'm just going to run through a few very quick and easy to use effects that can achieve some very different looks. We have our shot here of kind of hipster girl with her Instamatic camera. And again, we've just created various different adjustment or grade layers and applied different effects to them. So the first one we've got here is kind of an old film look, created using the HitFilm film damage. All kinds of features that can be customized here. From dust and scratches, grain, different, whether you want to be 16mm or 35mm grain, how much shake, whether you have a vignette, whether your image is flickery. By playing with all of these things, you can get very different kind of effects. And it can be quite a good fun one, and often with video cameras now are so strong and so powerful, but if you want to create a vintage look, something like this can help you do it very, very quickly indeed. And again, similarly, we've kind of tried to create a Instagram light leak type effect here, layering up a few different things. The anamorphic lens flares, which I'm going to be coming back to in a second. HitFilm's light leaks, which is where you can see these colored areas. We're also using lens dirt effects, which is analyzing the image and trying to create some kind of real feeling camera aberrations to simulate old or plastic lenses. Oops. Oh, I'm going to turn those off, not on. In a similar way to the film damage, we've created a kind of a TV damage look here with electrical interference. We've created some chromatic aberration by shifting some frames backwards and forwards with using the RGB channels to create different looks. You're not going to want to use these every day, but there might be a specific occasion where you would like to. And then again, using vibrance, but for a different kind of look. We've gone for more of the HDR, high dynamic range type feeling for this one. And we've used a little bit of the lens dirt to give it some natural feeling. Lens dirt's actually really good when you're working with CGI or heavily treated images. You can make things feel a little bit more natural because it's simulating using a real camera in the field. We just looked at retouching. That's a fairly extreme. We were looking for more of a kind of cartoon type feel. So we went all out with the saturation and the smoothness. And then things like halftone. So obviously a color halftone can be quite good fun. Oops. And again, completely customizable, keyframeable as you go along, so you can create different feelings. This is actually quite good for motion graphics because you can break images down and bring them back. You can control the colors, you can do it in black and white, do all kinds of different things. I'm doing the wrong one. So those are some very kind of quick and easy effects that you can achieve with HitFilm plugins. Now, I keep mentioning anamorphic flares, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about those using an example here. How's that looking? We've got a lot of grain in our Cinestyle, so I'm going to turn that off. This is our source clip. And through using the HitFilm Anamorphic Flares product, we've given it much more of a kind of a Michael Bay feel, to be honest. If we were to turn on this layer, it would definitely be Michael Bay. Though I think there's too much grain in there, so I'm going to turn that off. Now let's park on one of the frames we were seeing some flares, and I'll show you a little bit about how we put those together and the options that you can have. So we're just using a single streak here. As with the glows we were discussing earlier, the HitFilm plugin is analyzing the piece of footage. It's looking for the brighter areas, and it's automatically placing flares and glows where it thinks they should be. But beyond that, you have a lot of control how those flares appear. Now you can blur them out for a much softer look, or you can keep them hard for a kind of digital anamorphic flare type feeling. You can push the intensity in different directions. Obviously the threshold is going to control which areas of the frame they may or may not be appearing over. You can use the customizable controls to simulate actual lens effects in different ways. So for instance, if you were achieving genuine lens flare, but in one shot, but you needed to match it in the next, you have a high degree of control to recreate what you found by matching colors, bringing the intensity in. Obviously, the actual lenses are going to affect where in the frame the light appears and how it behaves in relation to camera movement as well. And you're able to control all of those things directly within the program. By adding in extra streaks, you can push things a lot further, and they're all customizable kind of individually, right down to changing the colors, different color spaces, all the kind of controls that you would expect, but they are there, and they're strong and fast GPU accelerated effects directly within Sony Vegas. Yeah, so we've kind of created two slightly different effects. So we've got some effects that are happening as we get the bumper going past, and then some more general ones, and finally we're reacting to the light of the sun coming underneath the truck there. And we've very quickly created a stylized, very modern, dynamic look to what was basically a piece of stock footage. Okay. Now, I think that's all the examples that I have today to go through. If anyone has any questions, be happy to chat to you over the Sony booths. We've got our software running, so whether it's about HitFilm, whether it's about plugins. The HitFilm plugin pack is going to be available from the 16th of April, retailing at $499. HitFilm itself is $399, or available and bundled with Sony. There are various different price points there. Maybe I have to speak to a Sony person about exactly the pricing. Yeah, but we're really looking forward to hearing a lot from Sony Vegas users about the effects that are directly within the program and how they find them. We're continually developing all of our effects in a kind of an open environment now. So anything that happens in HitFilm is going to be available in the future cross-platform. Our plugins work OFX and Sony Vegas. They're also supporting Final Cut Pro, Adobe After Effects, Adobe Premiere. So for people who have different post-production tools in their pipeline, it can be great to use the same tools within all the different programs, so you know they're working in similar ways. There are very few minor differences. Platforms approach certain things in different ways, but if you're familiar with an effect in one, the chances are you're going to be able to achieve the exact same result in something else. Yeah, we're very excited to hear what people think. Yes?
Are you recommending any particular GPU?
HitFilm itself, as background, begins as kind of a prosumer product. So we actually support fairly low-end might be harsh, but non-professional GPUs. Obviously, the better your GPU, the better the results you're going to get. All professional GPU setups are going to give you really, really great results. We support down to Intel HD 3000 cards. I run Final Cut using the HitFilm plugins pretty much in real time on a MacBook Air. So that's an Intel HD 5000. So obviously, there are all kinds of variables. So things like the codec you're using, your source footage, they are going to have an impact. But we support possibly the widest range of GPUs of any plugin manufacturer in this area. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Yeah. Yes. Hello.
In your Vegas package,
Yes.
do you have any of your motion tracking features sampled?
Yeah, I'm afraid we don't have the direct motion tracking, but obviously Vegas does have some motion tracking features of its own.
Vegas does now?
I believe so. I may be wrong. I'll have to check. But no, if you were to use HitFilm 2 Ultimate alongside in the interoperability way, then you can. And HitFilm 2 Ultimate also comes bundled with a bespoke version of Mocha from Imagineer Systems. So we have a 2D point tracker built into HitFilm, and if you want to do 3D camera solving using planar tracking, then that's available through Mocha. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, yeah, well, my name's Tom. I've also got Josh, Andrea, Elliot, and Kirsty here. So any of us, you can come and talk to us. I'm going to be back on the stand tomorrow, hopefully going to be showing some different examples if people want to see a bit more. But we'll be around for the full 3 days of the show. You'll always be able to find us through the Sony guys. Okay, thank you very much for your time.